meeting to order with pledge allegiance. I'm going to ask everybody to stand for about 15 seconds afterwards for in memorial to those from 9/11 20 years ago on Saturday. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to take a little bit of liberty here first. There's a new Pennsylvania law 65, which talks about agenda. So let me explain a few things because it's going to get a little bit more labor intensive for us or so. PA Act 65 was passed about 60 days ago for any public body. And so there's 4 things that really occur, and it all has to do with agenda and how you work on your agenda. So 1, the agenda must be posted at the meeting place. 2, it must be posted at the municipal building or where the body normally meets. It has to be available online. If you have a website, it has to be available for anybody that walks in the room as a member of the public. The reason is the agenda is supposed to be fixed at least 24 hours before the meeting. And the reason is you're not supposed to be doing any action. And if you sort of read between the lines, it's any action that's not de minimis or emergency, but it really involves expenditure of funds. All right. But there are 4 exceptions. So if it relates to an emergency and it's a clear and present danger, you can act on it. Business arises 24 hours before the meeting and the matter is de minimis in nature and does not involve an expenditure of funds or entering into a contract. The business arises during the conduct of the meeting by a resident or taxpayer, or the business is added to the agenda by a majority of the governing body of the agency through an amendment to the agenda to include the additional matter. So the reasons for the amending the agenda must be announced. The amendment must be posted at the agency's website the following day, like with the business day, I think it is. This all involves a state District 32 Patrick somebody senator and Stefano, who used to be on a municipal board, and then one of the school boards in his district hired a superintendent. It was never on the agenda. People wanted to give input. They hired it. Nobody was at the meeting. So this all kicked all this off over a period of years. So anyway, his district is out near Somerset and Uniontown, just to give you it's a huge district. So it must be not as heavily populated. So anyway, one of the things is on a roll call, I'm just going to mention everyone's here except for Dave Edgar. So that'll be noted. And then council meeting minutes, you'll see our minutes here from August 12th. Is there any conditions? Clarification, modifications, could the minutes be accepted as presented?
I move we accept the minutes presented.
Second. Motion been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Yes, I have the treasurer's report first.
Okay. So the bills you'll see in front of us, the total is $78,000 from the general fund, $78,893.27. From the sewer fund, you'll see $32,583.46. You'll see from the fire tax fund, $34,000. So you see a list of the bills that we want to be able to pay from general fund. You see them listed there for the sewer fund. You also see the expenditures from the fire tax fund. Is there a motion to accept the consolidated payment of bills from those 3 funds to be paid?
I'll make the motion that we accept the bills as presented.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Approval of the treasurer's report. In front of you, you see the treasurer's report. I'll go through the summary of the total cash available in general funds. $563,363,363.31. Total cash available in reserve accounts, $77,111.48. Total cash available in fire tax fund accounts, $583.53. Total cash available in sewer fund account, $362,198.88, and total cash available in the liquid fuel account, $282,456.72. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Are you here from the senator's office? Representative's office.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you're on the agenda. Please just announce who you are and be aware you're also on our Zoom channel. So you can stand on this side or you can do whatever you want.
I'll just move over here.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for having me here. It's a great appreciation. I'm here just to give a brief description of our office staff and the representative principal in office. And just kind of like give a little brief description about who Representative Pullman is. So Representative Pullman, she is an Air Force veteran, engineer, entrepreneur, and educator who is engineer career service as the first woman who ever represented the district in Congress. She's committed to fighting for access to quality and affordable healthcare, common sense, gun safety, government accountability, transparency, working to build a strong, stable economy with good jobs and good benefits for everyone. Representative Pullman, she is currently in 3 committees: the Armed Services Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and the Foreign Business Committee. And she also belongs to several caucuses, such as the full country caucuses, service women and women in further and congressional caucus, the agro-tourism caucus, the women in STEM caucus, problem solvers caucus, etc. So regarding our office, we have 2 functions in our office in the district. We have 2 offices, one in Westchester and one in Reading. Office in Reading is located in City Hall, during 248. So we do 2 functions. One is casework. When we help students, when they have an issue with a federal agency, we contact the agency on their behalf. Maybe there's some bureaucratic issue that's not letting them have like the Social Security benefit or immigration benefit or their taxes. So we contact the agency and they give us a response, and we try to help and advocate for constituents as best as we can. So through this, we in our office we have sent ever since the 117th Congress, this Congress that we started in January. We have sent about 2,743 emails. We have responded to 3,163 calls, and these are call redemption in our community. We have also secured for constituents through casework such as help with their Social Security benefits, IRS taxes, about 2,612,000. This is just in the 117th Congress. In the 116th Congress, since January 2019 and December 2020, we have returned 133,000 emails, 7,690 phone calls. We have drafted 4,609 letters to our community, and we helped secure $4,799,000 for every student. So Representative Pullman has led during the pandemic. She convened a Q&A session with Chambers of Commerce and membership. She also met with small business owners and provided frequent updates on relevant programs such as PPP. She also discussed challenges and opportunities with skilled trade organizations on local communities. She has also assisted in securing money for local projects. He has worked across the aisle to advocate and secure over 24.2 million for priority projects in our community, which includes bridge replacements, improved public transportation access, the stormwater repairs, electric vehicle charging stations, a mobile medical facility for low-income and rural Pennsylvanians, STEM programs at Harvard University, and youth vocational training. So we've done some legislative action ever since we started in the 117th Congress. Representative Pullman would pass the American Rescue, which included $170 billion for K through 12 and higher education to provide resources to address student learning loss and support teachers with additional training and technology. It also assists to provide $20 billion for the National Vaccination Program, $27.5 billion for emergency rental assistance, and $350 billion for the local government, which also support vital public services, replace lost revenue, or make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband, and the $1,400 for eligible American. She also helped pass the Invest in America Act, which increases infrastructure investment by 54%. focus on fixing existing infrastructure, ensure bridges and Pennsylvania assets are safer, more reliable, and more fulfilled. It invests $4 billion in electric vehicle charging infrastructure. It improves the roads in Chester and Berks County and significantly boosts the roadway safety programs. It makes record investments in transit, including SEPTA, and scale up investment in zero emission transit vehicles, and triple fund for critical goals. In regards to small businesses, she has delivered for the HR 2784, which is the Standard Start Act, the HR 652, the Rent for Innovator Act, which helped fund small business research, the National Apprenticeship Act of 2021, which aims to expand access to high quality registered apprenticeship programs, and which passed the House in February. So like I said, we have 3 offices, 2 offices in the district, 3 total, 1 founded in Washington, D.C. We have 1 office in Westchester and 1 in Reading, which is the one closest to us. And our website is house.gov, and I'll take any questions now if anyone is interested in that.
Councilor, any questions, comments?
Your office has been very responsive. I have sent emails and stuff. I've been one of the ones sending a few emails.
Understood. But thank you for reaching out to us.
I'll make a comment that does not reflect council's thoughts or just mine personally. I worry about the potential increase in spending on infrastructure bills, only because I truly believe there'll be increases on other people's cost of living and taxes, even though there will be no increase in income taxes. The problem then will be down the road when we as municipality have to increase taxes because of other new regulations or demands or whatever. We tend to get the brunt of the spear at that point when everybody comes in complaining about, us raising a sewer rate or general taxes. And if my knowledge is correct, I don't think Congressperson Wilhan has ever been on any other elective office. She just immediately got elected to U.S. representatives. And this is where, the first line of criticism usually gets. So I don't think she's ever had that, type of senior citizens come in and be extremely agitated over something. So that's my problem.
I will, if there are any extra questions, if you want to send me an email about the
I'll probably send it to Warren and he is correct.
I'll leave my business cards.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And certainly feel free if you need someplace else to go, because local meetings are sort of boring. But if you're welcome to stop.
I do have some other business, I really appreciate you having me tonight here.
Okay.
This is some information about and well, if there isn't anything else, I will not take any more of it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Appreciate the effort. I don't think we've had any other congressional representative approach council in the last 20 years, so you can take that back. What's that? They're every 2 years. Thank you, guys. Portion of this meeting is open for any public comment. Are you all here for public comment?
We're here for the motorcycles on the mountain.
You want to go ahead now, or you want to, there's going to be some of that action probably later. I had an agenda item at the end, but if you want to say now, whatever you'd like. Like sit through the rest of the meeting and get in through at the end there, or what?
I guess.
Okay, great. So we'll move on. Consultants report, Borough Engineer.
Other than what's in my report, I don't have anything else that I had questions on my report.
Council, have any questions? You want to take a minute, or we can do that. We'll just chit chat.
There's been no.
Ty, you did take camp in 73, did you? Okay. Just asking.
Been nothing new on the land development plan. So.
Right.
The permit for Acrolabs. What's the contract?
That is a UCC permit, and they are.
Council has any other questions? We'll move on to solicitors.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, okay,
That's okay. So just because they pulled that permit, they have that tangible permit in possession, how long are we waiting?
I don't know. Usually, we could probably wait about 30 or 60 days. I think something reasonable. We don't see any dirt flying in that point in time. I think we can certainly send some sort of communication or stop in and ask them what's going on.
Well, I guess back to what we discussed right before, when the session, once you get into the cold weather.
Right.
It becomes a little bit more to ask, because it always costs more for cold winter protection.
Derek, do you end up driving down past that like once a day?
Yeah, I haven't seen any action down.
There's no one-call marks.
Hey, can you call, next time you drive by, can you actually just stop in and then send us a quick email, hey, I stopped in on this day? You know, at the request of council, they want to see it, you know, we haven't seen any other action, like the one call. And then so ask it, you know.
I guess maybe their presumption is, well, the permit's good for a year, so we have a year.
Yeah. They're already sort of in arrears.
They're years in arrears.
Yeah, so, good point. Solicitor,
Okay, during this month, I provided information on hunting and activities on land, provided information and prototype ordinance on small wireless facilities as required to amend zoning ordinance under Act 50 and provide information to begin that process. And also now working on the fire service RFP.
yeah, let me just mention, the Fire Service RFP, it wasn't until we sort of dug down in, we had asked them for two options, for year 4 and year 5 options, the same sort of format we had for the trash collection. So one of our emails back now will be, you want to go with what you told us you needed in year 4, because it's mutually agreeable.
Well, you would make a motion to execute year 4, and then it's in there, and that's sent to both fire companies, and then it's up to them if they respond in the negative, either one, then we would have to redo your.
So is there a motion by council that we'll go ahead and communicate with the fire companies and ask them if they want to enact the year 4 option? It's already, they've submitted a,
I wasn't aware of that option, but
It's an
I talked to the chief, I said, hey, by the way, this is coming up. Was it 3 years already? And he asked about the police contract. I said, I think they have an option.
yeah, we found out years ago that we can only enact things for 3 years under Borough Code. But we can always ask, because then another council will be involved. But boy, we get some much better numbers, you know, then, you know, things get more volatile as years go by. So, you know, we have not been, I have not seen us being hurt by asking for that, because if we didn't like it, we would just, you know, rebid it. But it saves us a ton of money if we don't rebid it.
Right.
And if they don't agree to that number, then they're gonna get picked over on, well, why the number's even higher. You know, because, you know, and plus, we can change whatever we want in the RFP, you know, so.
It does, it is a 0.02 mil increase over the previous.
Got it.
Right, locks in the rate of increase and what the 3 years for the newer members of council is the prohibition on binding future borough councils.
Right.
But you can have an option in to extend for additional years beyond that 3, which is the usual rule.
So I think it'd be prudent if we had a motion to go ahead and communicate with both the fire companies to see if they're willing to enact the option for year 4, and, you know, and because we're willing. So, Reverend, Mo makes that motion,
I'll second.
and Warren seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Mayor, got a report for us?
Yes, I do. The past 3 months, that would be June, July, and August, of the police chief's report for the St. Lawrence Borough disclosed a continuing pattern of police activity with a small increase in criminal offenses and arrests. Summer's out, school's in. This is the time to be extra alert when operating a vehicle. School buses seem to be everywhere transporting students. Children can be very anxious to catch their bus and not check for approaching motorists crossing without care. Please drive with care always, especially when school is in session. And mayor's report.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor's report? We'll move on. Code enforcement, anything?
We have had voluntary compliance for several issues which received courtesy notices.
Great. Just like you're supposed to. Public work safety, we have a report from Derek. I was gonna just, if you go down through a couple things, we've been informally working with some of the municipalities, either borrowing equipment in lieu of if they need extra labor, we send something at one point in time. If there was an early snowfall and if, you know, their snowplow was down, we'll go plow them. But I asked Joan to reach out to the solicitors in our, where we're doing with Borough, Mount Penn, places like that. So we have something on paper that says, hey, when we have someone working for, in your borough because of request, he's still on our payroll, still on our workman's comp and stuff like that. And if we borrow a piece of machinery from them, you know, our intention is to give it back in the same, you know, condition as we took it. So if we back it into a baller, we know we would pay for that or something like that, you know. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, everybody, it was sort of formalized, if that makes any sense, in case something in the near future. Because we know worst case scenario would be if we're using a piece of equipment and somebody else drives into it, you know, then we were going to be the responsible party to go after their insurance or something like that. I just, you know, I thought that just needed a little bit more formalization. So that may be something coming up. Another thing of importance. So of course we went ahead and used through CoStarz Mr. Rehab to go televise all the laterals. So you see they've done as of this week the mains 33,750 linear feet of our 45,175 linear feet. Okay, so they've already identified you know, X amount of linear foot that needs, you know, relined, which is what we had been anticipating from about 10 years ago. So about 10 years ago, when we started doing all this, we were in, you know, several different discussions with experts, stuff like that. But we had vowed that we would keep our system, you know, inflow and infiltration causes more than needs to be processed. We got paid more. So, you know, so far all our deals have been that we would maintain our system. So these are systems that have never been televised before, or we re-televising some.
They've been televised, I think, before this, just another televised and clean. These are areas that aren't lined or have had previous point repairs that might be failing.
Right, so these were ones that got passed over previously, but now, you know, may need some stuff. So what I was thinking is we can go through with CoStarz again, pricing to get stuff fixed. And these are all small mains, like 8 inches or less and things like that.
All of our big stuff, 10 and 12 inches are fine, so everything's left now.
It's just the small stuff. I wanted to see if the council would be acceptable to authorize up to like $100,000 of the potential $132,000 now, because then we can get on the board with Mr. Rehab. Because as I explained to Mike, and Mike agrees, once you hit October 15th, you can't count on the weather. And almost all these things involve them taking a long piece of almost like fire hose that's embedded with epoxies, and then they put hot water or steam and it inflates inside and cures inside the pipe. So anything that cures gets affected by temperature. The water gets affected by temperature. Just, you know, so I think if our intent was to always repair X amount of stuff, you see we have the money already in our sewer fund to do it. So I think let's go ahead and get them going, and then by our next meeting in October, we'll have a final number, or maybe they'll be, and we'll pick the higher priority ones right now and tell them start moving through, or group them together. It makes it easier, but something like that. So I'm looking for a motion. Go ahead.
So if we would approve that, would they get started on that immediately?
They would start scheduling this in to do stuff that's priority one, stuff that they suggest right away they find.
So they could get on that right away.
They could take measurements, get the stuff ordered.
It's a lot easier to have leverage with your contractor when he's already doing A for you, and you tell him you want him to do B. Because if he comes back to the, I didn't get there till October 1st, we're gonna make a few more phone calls. So our intention is we're gonna authorize that, and we expect to see some of that work starting in the next probably 2 weeks or so.
Have you
That
got-
would be our expectation,
have
sorry.
you gotten any estimate on what it's gonna cost to do the most critical?
So right now, from what they have recommended as far as lining stuff is 2,950 linear feet.
Okay.
And then we have another target area that's up in Marywood, that's back in the woods that we already had scoped out, and that's 725 linear feet. So that would get us to 3,675 linear feet. We had previously got quoted for the 725 before we went for the full televised, and that was $36 per linear foot cost wise. So that may be a little bit less, but the high end mark will be $36 linear foot. So at the full 3,700 linear feet round out, will be about 132,000.
So we already in that section through the woods that we want to do.
That doesn't include lateral launches and mobilization.
Right.
Price comes down for linear footage.
I would say yes. Because that was 725 linear feet, guys, to 36.
That was the initial quote.
Yeah.
So
Mike will probably not agree with me. You never want to give, the big dollars all at once to the contractor. I think we have enough work we can authorize. I think we authorize about 75% of it, knowing our full intention is to authorize the other 25% once we get a progress report in October. That's what I'm suggesting.
I don't fully disagree with it. Would it be in our best interest to ask them to report it out the additional footage
We can do
before we
Yeah.
write that
It's gonna
check?
be based on whatever their co-star's rates are, anyway, based off of, so it's gonna be.
It's gonna be less mob and demob for us probably if amongst any.
It's gonna be a fixed amount, whether, and they'll have it by linear.
Right, and now do we have the potential to add to that with the additional?
Yes, they still, when I was given this report, they had not finished St. Lawrence Avenue yet, which they ran into a problem already, and they haven't done all of our right of way areas, including Marywood, areas behind Old Borough Hall, down through Penn's Grant, stuff like that. So that stuff all isn't done yet, so there's potential for stuff to get added. Less likely for a lot of, we already had a lot of our right of way stuff lined, but
Are we inclined to have it all repaired?
We got the money for it.
Well, what I would.
It's not gonna get cheaper.
If they requoted at
Yeah.
every dollar's a dollar saved,
Yeah.
And if they want to do a change order to add the additional at the same rate, that's okay.
Once again, the more we rely, the more we're gonna leverage into PA America on our sewer fees.
Going to be a-
Now, they already got 2021 and 22 approved by PUC, but then we're gonna probably be a little more vocal with them because if you see the PUC tariff, we're broken out as a Gulf user versus the Exeter district.
Right.
So once again, what we're doing is all this stuff saves us in the end. So is there a motion to authorize up to $100,000 to Mr. Rehab to start working on the higher priority mains that we've already identified, and knowing that we're gonna have an additional change order to that probably at our next meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll say,
Motion been moved and seconded to authorize Mr. Rehab to do the sewer main reline rehabilitation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed.
And now if I can address Mr. Rehab tonight, as he did last week, they almost created a train wreck down here. They stopped at the end of 3800 block, no signage, no flagmen, no cones, nothing. They parked in the eastbound lane. And people are so patient. People are going westbound and eastbound lane and nobody wants to give. On 562.
Yeah, I got caught up in that myself.
now I will say one thing, they had communicated to me that they were not gonna be doing the right of way area behind Penn's Grant. They're going down along the channel at the central stadium.
That's where they were.
So originally, they were supposed to be up in Marywood this week, but they ran into issues with their machinery. So anytime they're on the avenue, I use a pop sign to make sure that stuff's open.
They did
They're
not.
off.
No strobe, no nothing. I mean, people don't pay attention, I tell you that. But nobody paying attention, nobody watching, and they did it up here last week. I don't know,
Please communicate with Mr. Rehab and ask for their safety person, that's where we want the complaint to go to. Perhaps their personnel need retraining. Yes, it is.
Task force.
Excellent. So,
So you got those?
no, what we need to do is our previous vote on this rehab is not valid because it's not on the agenda, it's an action item.
Okay,
So I need to amend,
why don't you first of all withdraw the motion, and then a new motion to amend the agenda, for,
okay, so we have to vote on withdrawing the motion?
you have, well, no, just.
So I'll just withdraw the motion. So now I'm gonna ask,
Whoever made the motion,
Okay.
whoever made the motion withdraws it,
Whoever made the motion, which was Mike.
Mike.
I make a motion that we withdraw the motion.
okay, all right, and then. All right.
so we need a new motion to amend the agenda to authorize funding for relining of our sewer main for Mr. Rehab.
Right, and by the way, while you're doing that, add that it is under CoStarz because of the.
Under CoStar's pricing. Is there a motion? Is someone gonna make that motion?
I'll make said motion.
Is there a second? The motion is to amend the agenda. Is there a second motion to move to second to amend the agenda for the funding for Mr. Rehab via CoStarz? All in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Aye, all opposed. Motion passes. Is there a motion to authorize Mr. Rehab up to $100,000 to start on rehabilitation of our sewer mains using CoStar rates?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been moved to second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, all opposed. Motion passes. Now you're seeing Act 65 in action. It's gotta be clear, present danger, or something like that. There's these words actually in the act. So anyway, that was our public works. Anything else? A question, public works?
Yes, a comment. I was informed that the Salter was heavily damaged with the trees coming down.
Yeah, a huge oak tree on it. The salt for it. The
Oh,
top.
it's top out.
Somebody was up there in the dump truck, I thought.
I know Jen was up there, not sure she's got
Yeah,
it.
it got hammered, it's not over. I cut,
We have a bed in Salter up there for the summer, so it's
Oh,
just stored.
Under a tree.
Now it's under.
Yeah.
Literally.
Take a look at it and see what we need, if it's operating or not.
Well, I don't think it works well before, so.
What?
The bed in Salter?
The embed Salter.
Yeah.
Oof.
That was
the old,
passed down from Mr. Gaines.
that's the old.
Yeah, see, so currently we salt off the dump truck because it has its own salter. We typically use the pickup for brine, so we hardly ever use that salter. And I don't know if it was actually operational all the time either.
They say we never used, like I never used it. So.
And there was some issues about maybe getting rid of it, but it's all stainless and, perhaps if we found, a Votech school that wanted to rebuild it for us or something like that, that might do some of it. So that's why it's sitting up there, one of the reasons.
I know I drove up there to look at it, when that knocked, it just don't seem to have it. So
yeah, I don't know that it really got smashed, it's kind of laying over, but there was a huge oak tree that if it did get, if it just knocked it over, then it could have.
Bring up the shop with the summer.
Yeah, there was, I don't know, probably at least 20 huge oaks that got ripped out.
I know there's that one, there's one that fell across our property adjacent to our.
Well, if you keep on going straight there, and this is some of the reason I'm here, for years I've maintained the loop around for emergency vehicles. There was 4 huge oak trees. I have pictures of it. Him and I spent probably 5 hours Thursday cutting that open so you can now get an emergency vehicle through. There was also 6 other places that were blocked that we cut open. We also installed 2 rain breaks on a hill that we call Monato's Hill. It's Warren, maybe you can tell them where it is a little bit better. It's we call it,
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly one we call.
you go out Adams Street, that trail takes you underneath the power lines.
Yeah.
If you keep on going straight, there's two hills there. One was created when we had the Borough law, and they were pulling, the trees down to take to the landing. There's probably a 4-foot gash in that hill, and him and I took huge pieces of oak that we had previously cut to keep it open, and we rolled them down and then packed stone. So it's two areas, it's a really nice rain break at that area now.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get up there and make sure we take care of that stuff in the landing right there on the halves. And then we have another couple other trees we're gonna try to cut off like the property.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because they're beautiful, straight oak trees, that are just ripped out of the ground. It's just a shame that they're just gonna lay there and not. At
All
least, the trail's open. If something would happen to a hunter, hiker, or whoever, we can get an emergency vehicle from Adams Street all the way around to the Water Tower Road.
And
Thank you for doing.
yeah, appreciate it. Next item was the finance. I'm going to direct you all to a little spreadsheet I put together about PA America and the tariffs. So essentially, this is from their supplement number 24 to tariff wastewater PA PUC number 16. So the first highlighted number, $1.52 per 100 gallons. That's what the Exeter district is being charged right now, plus the $11 per month service charge, which is like a meter charge. Okay. So when you go down to bulk user, that is us. Okay. So that's it's 28 cents per 100 gallons. And we charge a flat rate of like $35 per quarter. So that's $11 a month. So the meter charge is about the same. So I didn't even look at trying to put the meter charge in here. But what you're going to see is they've already got permission from the PUC to increase their rates this year and next year. Okay. And so the amount of the increase is 25% if you live in Exeter, but they actually not increasing our bulk rate as much. Our sewer rate's going to go up 16% next year. All right. So I'm just trying to give you some perspective. So I came down here on the second part showing the St. Lawrence Borough sewer charging. So you can see right now, our charge to our citizens is 63 cents per 100 gallons. And so if you look at the comparison versus the PA bulk rate, we're charging essentially 35 cents more, like a 50% on top of our base fee. And that's what we spend maintaining the system and all this other stuff. All right. So what you get then is our billing rate versus PA America Exeter District. Our citizens are paying 58%, 58 cents versus $1 to Exeter for just sewer. So what I wanted to do was try to point out. So when anybody ever really comes and say, what do you guys do for me as an elected official? One of the things you can say is, well, we know our sewer rate, you're only paying 58 cents versus $1 for over at Exeter. And two things come out of this. One, every month PA American says, hey, you want to sell your system. All right. We sell the system, we're going to be on that Exeter district charges. Okay. So number one. Number two, this also gives you a little bit more insight. Should we ever merge with somebody else? Okay. So the only thing we have right now is how we're saving citizens money. We're pretty meager spending on all this other stuff. What are we here for? Primarily what? Fire, ambulance, water, sewer. The only one we can control right now, pretty much everything else is contractual. What we steer that. So I'm just trying to point out, even though half Allison's salary, probably about a third of your salary is put against the water sewer budget. We're still doing that type of management, and it's primarily accounting. you know, once you sort of have your idea how to do it, and this was part of that 10 years ago when we decided how to push the sewer rates to give us enough money to do all the relining and stuff like that. And we knew it would pay off. We didn't know they're going to sell the sewer plant, stuff like that. But I'm just trying to give you a perspective on this. So if anybody in your walking down and saying, you know, St. Lawrence, you guys are spending money like crazy, or you're trying to increase my sewer rate, now you have something really to show them. So, good job.
Good analysis.
Thank you. Manager, anything? Nothing.
No, other than I did have to sit down with PA American to discuss the village and how we can resolve.
Let me clarify.
Issues.
PA American sends us statements, so you owe us this much money. And I say, should never pay a statement. Now, if you go into some accounting book somewhere, I know, it says never pay on a statement, pay on an invoice. So part of the problem is, however they do billing versus us wasn't matching up for a while. But we were always paying them, but you know, we kept pressing them, what's wrong with you guys? Why can't you create an invoice? You know, because I don't think a statement is really something you can track during an audit or something like that. I think we would get gated pretty bad if we paid on statements. You know, so anyway, that was part of the issue. So. Emergency management, Dave's not here. We'll move on. Library, anything new?
Just two quick things as part of the community engagement strategy. They're putting the story off. The next step is they're going to build an outside amphitheater for outdoor programs. The second thing I thought would interest the folks with some of the older population we have is the Berks library system is now looking at offering home delivery for housebound people.
That makes a decent gesture. Would they be using like Lyft or somebody like they, you know?
During these volunteers.
Yeah. DoorDash or something, here's a book, take it. Municipal lands, you guys want to talk about municipal lands in particular?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the agenda is on the motorcycles and,
It's in the new business.
Yeah, you want to wait? Yeah, well, let me run through these other things pretty quick. Recreation, there's really nothing to report on. Planning commission, there's been no meeting because there's nothing going on there. Same with zoning hearing board, there hasn't been anything brought up. So back on old business, we have resolution supporting the PA commission semi-quincentennial. I asked you guys to push out to there, and I forget why. We don't have to spend any money.
You can approve a resolution and just supporting the formation of the county
Right,
committee.
and supporting their work, but I spoke with one of the assistant county solicitors, and there is no financial commitment, by simply adopting the resolution.
Anyone in council feel like making a motion for that? You know, if there's a lack of motion, it will die. It can be brought up at any other point as long as it's
They were looking
24
for
hours before. Huh?
They wanted 100% participation from all the municipalities.
And what does that get?
What's the?
It makes them feel good.
No,
They, all they
Is there any
want.
negative to us doing?
I'm sure there's
No,
no.
and because.
I asked, is there a
Because
motion?
there's no money, you could always, at a later time, donate money if you so choose.
So,
I'll make the motion.
then we're gonna go ahead and, do we need a resolution for that, or we just need?
There was a sample.
Prepare a resolution for next meeting for 100% support by St. Lawrence Borough for the PA commission.
No financial obligation.
Yeah, correct. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, and just make sure that as you're looking at the resolution language.
Yeah.
That it's clear that there is no financial commitment by the borough at this time without further authorization.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion been moved to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Small wireless communications zoning amendment.
We're not ready to do that yet.
Then we'll just move that into next month. We talked a little bit about the RP for fire service earlier, and we actually had action on that, so we cross that off. So discussion potential motion for advertise a budget meeting on November 9th at 10 a.m. in council chambers. I typically never attend these. Dave usually attends them. I think he has that day off on date shift. That's why 10 o'clock works best for him. And others, if that's okay with them, we would need just a motion. We will actually make that many minutes. Do we have to make a newspaper now? Yeah, because it's considered a meeting,
Yes.
right? So if does everybody want to make a motion, we'll do that. And even if just Jay shows up, that's all counts. We had the budget meeting and go forward.
I'll make a motion and we advertise it for a budget meeting on November 9th at 10 a.m.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded. All in favor for advertising the budget meeting on November 9th at 10 a.m. in council chambers, please say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion passes. And then I had added down here Berks County Nature Conservation Easement Agreement. You guys want to present first? Or listen?
Maybe I'll start out since I went for the walk and everything.
Yeah.
And I see Allison.
No, this is mine.
Oh, you're.
This is all me.
Oh, good. You have a pretty good little summary of what they have here rather than going.
So if you look, I have a little handout for everybody because we got a one-page report from August 6th on their annual report, which is required under our easement agreement. So as you know, we had a little carve-out area up at the top of the hill, which we had said we were always going to use for leaf composting. So some of their comments were we have street sweeping material, we laid asphalt up there, and then they used the term wet areas, which is actually in the easement agreement. Should have wetland delineation because, quote unquote, former reservoir bed is currently a wetland. And so I made a comment in here, a wet area is not a wetland per United States Army Corps of Engineers. There's like a 300-page manual published in 1987 that you have to be trained in, that's how they accept whether it's a wetland or not. And DEP accepts that. It doesn't meet, in my opinion, because I had the training 20-some years ago, but I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I took the training because I was representing at an engineering company at the time for cell phone towers over in New Jersey up on high spots, and there's very little wetlands in there. So I don't want to be known as a wetland delineator, but I certainly could say that because I took the training, but it doesn't meet the criteria up there because you have to have three things: vegetation, soil, and hydrology. And in general, when you fill in a hole, you're not going to have the hydric soils as typically needed. All right. So then, however, if you read our easement, which I had to look it out, we have to react to every one of these comments in the easement. And when we react to them, we could either dispute them or tell them what we're going to do and stuff like that. But then they have the right to back charge us any of their costs for anything that they have to do besides the annual report. So I have a little bit of concern here because we could probably hire someone like Liberty Environmental or somebody to do wetland delineation. But part of the problem now is to go up there and say it's not a wetland. We have to have all that done. You'd probably have to then, if it well, let me retrace. Wetlands are, once defined, you have to have a 100-foot riparian buffer. You have to have a buffer there. And then generally you have to have a 50-foot warning track. Okay? So if suddenly that area up there suddenly was declared a wetland by a wetland delineator, we'd lose all our public access up there, which I don't think was ever our intent. You know, we had carved out that little area because we had told them that's what we wanted to do, but the report doesn't sort of reflect that. You know, and if you look at the easement agreement, they sort of have a right to manage everything in there. So one of the other comments was newer road and social trails due to recreational motorized vehicles. And they said recreational motorized trail is not, the use is not permitted in the agreement. And they need signage need directed and steep trail closure with public involvement with people who use or are doing the recreational motorized trail. So that's their recommendation. The third one, the highlight was forest regeneration impacted by deer. They suggest that hunting is a known forest regeneration tool. They say the borough is not tracking name and number of licensed hunters up there, and that there's a potential liability consequence, and that there's a need for a formal hunting arrangement. So that
basically what I was telling you this last meeting.
right. So I asked council tonight, we got in the easement, and I don't know if we should still be in it. And the reason is, if you want to at least go through the stuff in this report, I'm suggesting it's to be $5,000. And if we answer back and forth, we have no rate sheet from them. They can hire, Johnny Cochran as an attorney and we build $1,000 an hour and we have to pay it under the agreement, and all this other stuff. I'm somewhat annoyed that if you're gonna be a conservation type organization, then one of the three people up there perhaps is a wetland delineator. Because if they were, they would see that it's not a wetland. But there's a wetland per
I
Army
think
Corps.
you're somewhat overreacting.
No, I'm not.
To, when I walked through with them,
Yeah.
they saw plants that they said were typical of wetlands.
Right.
I don't know that these plants that are typical of wetlands delineates it being a wetland.
Right.
I think a simple discussion with them, and open dialogue with them is all that's needed, rather than going.
Well, the other thing is, under our agreement, they have the right to declare a wet area. All right. And wet areas are out of bounds for any type of trail or anything else either. So I see this layer of management up there that I didn't see in previous, I don't even, we got in the other annual reports. So
Yeah, so this is the first
one.
first one they come and done it.
Right. So I look at it and say, geez, in the budget coming up, do we have to put $5,000 to $10,000 in the budget every year to respond to the Berks nature report? And after 5 years, what did I spend and what did I get out of that? And I don't know. I don't know. I can see if we were a private landowner and we were getting a tax break because of this, but we don't pay taxes on our own municipal land. So now we have a layer of someone telling us what we can or cannot do because we agreed to that. And now it's going to cost us money anytime these things occur. And I didn't really think about that 3 years ago.
I believe it's well worth having a dialogue with them. I don't think their intent is to have us spend huge amounts of money or spend money.
Well,
we may be able to
here's
work with this.
the other alternative would be to go back in this agreement we signed, which is essentially a contract. Right. If we amend anything in the contract, it's going to be our attorney versus their attorney back and forth. We're going to spend money to amend the agreement. So now I'm back to the original question. Why are we in the agreement anyway? What benefit is the borough getting, even if it cost us $0, but now it's not costing us? That's my problem.
I believe the original intent of going to the agreement was to protect the land and they keep it maintained in a healthy state in the future.
I don't think we disagree with that.
And that was the intent of it.
But I think what we ended up is signing an agreement that was their standard language for a private entity. And I don't know if that meets our needs.
You know. Did we read that before we?
I believe so.
I signed it now, and I'll tell you right now, someone should put a gun to my head for signing this thing. I'm dead serious. Warren, I went through it. You want to look at all my highlights here? I'm there, Bob, how did I sign this? And it says right here, water courses, springs, wetlands, their term of wetlands, and non-impounding standing water within 100 foot. So we have to now do all this stuff under the agreement. And I don't know spending money in that manner if it could be spent better well in that same aspect. Is where I'm at.
Well, as I say, I believe it's fair game to have an open discussion with them before you go and just say, we're gonna get out of this agreement.
Can you give me 5 reasons what benefits we're getting out of them as being the steward of that property for the citizens?
You're protecting that property, keeping it well maintained, getting their.
Because of their oversight we're doing that, or is that something we weren't doing before?
Well, you don't know what any future council might decide to do. Let's just put a development in there.
Well, so So we're gonna pay X amount of money per year, so no one else
So
pays.
you're assuming we're gonna pay, how much have we paid so far, the 2 or 3 years we've been in this contract?
Zero, but this is the first annual report that they owe us.
I tend to agree with Warren. I think this could be settled reasonably without.
I'm concerned under the terms in here now, we can't do anything unless we amend the agreement. And if I'm gonna spend money to amend the agreement, I figure we might as well spend money to dissolve the agreement. Because I don't, once again, it's gonna be X amount of money, we're supposed to have signage up there. They want us to have a public meeting with the motorcycle riders. They want us to have a deer program. All these things are gonna cost money if we follow their recommendations, which we're required to do under the easement.
But I believe protecting the land is a valuable thing for us to be doing.
And
Part of what we're doing here right now, tonight, they were gonna come and talk about what they're doing to help protect.
technically, you're not allowed to put the water bar in up there. If you read this agreement, we can't do that.
Well,
They have to approve anything we do up there because we signed our rights away.
the only thing, I mean, I've lived up there my whole life.
Right.
I started riding up there 55 years ago with my father. We've always kept the trails open.
Yeah.
We only have passion for that mountain. We clean up any bit of trash. Warren, he knows that. We keep a safety loop open in case, there would have to be an emergency vehicle up there. There was a fire up there a few years ago. We actually led the fire department to where the fire was. There's 5 or 6 of us that are all older. We're all professionals. We're not young kids running around. Dr. Eversole here is a surgeon. He's one of us. The Hafers, which own Hafer Environmental, they own property next to that. And the only thing we have is good intention. We've already chased away what I would call hoodlums. And
Motorized hoodlums or unmotorized or just?
well, both.
Yeah.
They would come up from Mountain Park and they'd be drinking beer, they'd have fires. And we would say, look, you're not supposed to be here, especially if they were on the Hafers land. But we've, cleaned up bags and bags of trash from up there. And, like I say, the only thing we have is the good interest of that area. It's beautiful. I live right on the edge of it. I take care of it. I work with Warren. He called me the other day about cutting some ailanthus trees down. I met him up there. I carry my chainsaw when I'm riding the bike. We cut down a bunch of ailanthus trees. He's informed me of 2 other species, which I'm helping to get rid of that are very invasive. We're not young punks running around. We're all fully geared from head to toe. We're protected.
And I like the fact, I don't have that passion for that. Ask me about Bitcoin mining, I don't know anything about that. Go up there and identify a plant or something, I know minimal. I just don't have that gene, But here in the agreement, it says, cutting trees, any disturbances, all this are deemed reasonable under the circumstances. We have to consult with the holder, that's the Berks nature, prior to taking these actions. It's just not a good agreement.
You mean even if the tree falls down and it's dead and we cut it so an emergency vehicle can get through there?
That's how, I let Warren read through all my lines,
Well, when I went through with them, and I told, we actually went right by where you cut the land.
And there's been,
And they had no problem with us doing that.
Well,
they thought it was a good idea. You see?
yeah, and I think, the problem I have is the agreement we have is like a DEP permit or something,
Mhm.
where, you know, we gave away all our rights on how we want to do things because we asked them to be the steward for us. And I just don't think this is the right agreement.
Well, what happens if we do nothing at this point?
They can, whatever they cost us to make us do the things in here, because this is a contract, you know, we get billed for.
Have they given us a list, a to-do list?
Basically, this is their to-do list right here. This is their report.
And-
First thing is they want the wetlands delineated. You know,
Well, like you said, what if you just don't do it? What are they gonna do?
solicitor, was your advice to the council never to abide by an agreement?
I don't want to be in breach of an agreement. I don't want to be in breach of contract. If that is a recorded agreement. Now, I think that there is some room, if these are recommendations, if this is a letter saying that this is what needs to be done, I think there is room for discussion and negotiation as to the intent of the agreement and what the meaning of the words is. So I think that is definitely open for discussion.
So it says right here, recreational motorized vehicle use is not permitted. That's one of the action items in their report. Even to maintain things is not permitted.
Well, they said more than that though.
Right, because then that's when they came and said, hey, you need to have a meeting with the known motorcycle riders and express appreciation for the maintenance of improved trails. Thank you. And then, and express appreciation for maintenance of the trails and make them aware the borough is closing of steep trails that are causing erosion. Signage will be erected. Ask for continued cooperation if they wish to extend.
And that was exactly what is being done. It's not saying that we are to ban them.
Right. Comments from council, you know, I'm telling you, this is, I can't, I'm gonna be the citizen out there right now and say, what'd you guys do? You know, why are you letting them make the calls? And why are we spending money like that I could have given $5,000 to volunteers to help do something?
We're not spending.
We're gonna have to spend money to respond to this.
That's
Okay,
your
what?
opinion,
well,
but
that's
you
your
have to spend money.
It's not my opinion, Warren. It's right in here. It says it that in their annual report that we have to review their annual report and act on things. It says in the easement agreement, we have to put signage up there that they're a holder of the easement. You know, it says in the agreement when any wet area has to be, you know, not disturbed, even if it's a puddle under this. It's just, this agreement is all on their side of the table. It was a standard agreement, you know.
Actually, no, as we were discussing this, I'm able to go back in my emails. There was some back and forth. It wasn't just a standard agreement. There was a certain amount of back and forth and there were revisions. I mean, what I'm looking at for the monitoring report is that there is room for discussion based on the way that it's phrased. It doesn't look to me like it is, like you have to do exactly what it says, the way it says. And I think there is room for discussion.
So what could happen to that land up there without Berks Station? Has anything taken place up there that would force us to enter into this agreement?
I'm not, there's no way I can answer that it forced us to enter.
I was just saying in general.
Which the only thing that
What does Berks Nature do for us outside of that report that would assure that nothing ever happens up there? It's borough property, right? Okay.
Borough, right.
Borough owned, right? So without our consent, aside from Berks Nature, nothing could happen up there.
It's not true.
well, I think the main,
That's not true.
the main
So
goal,
So why do we have Berks Nature as the, what's called the mountain police, if it really wasn't necessary?
Because you were thinking that was the best course of action for the future.
For the future. Correct, to protect the land.
Is this renewable agreement?
I'm not against those goals. I'm against how we went and got to where we're at. And I read a report that says you need to delineate the wetlands up there. To me, that means you have to respond under the easement.
I think you have to respond, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to do a full wetlands delineation. I think the ways of doing things and what they want done, I think this is more like a laundry list. It doesn't necessarily have to be done 100%, 100% of what is in here.
So that's a
Is that
different recommendation and requirement, right?
Yeah, there is a difference between a suggestion and a recommendation and requirement.
I think maybe that clarification might ease some of this.
Yeah, I would like, yeah, I'd like to have a copy of this,
Copy of what?
copy of the August 16th letter.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you mine. It's all but highlighted and stuff like that.
You can have that.
So, a couple of things. One, we never paid for anything to get in the agreement because they assumed all the costs. But if we break the agreement, that cost is all on us. That's one of the things. So what is the sunk cost to get out of the agreement? Do you have any idea what it would take, solicitor, to get out of the agreement?
I don't, I would have to look at the agreement, what it says as far as termination of the agreement, what notices required and costs required.
So Warren, what do you envision in the future? There was a point in time 3 years ago, you had this fear that the future council would somehow deface that property. And then we need a Berks nature to make sure that would never happen.
It's having an organization like that, like we want to go and do logging, making sure it's done
But we did logging once before without
in
this,
a reasonable.
but we can't do it now
Yeah, we can.
under their jurisdiction.
They just need to review what is planned. That's correct.
Okay. So do you feel in the future we're gonna have no expenditures responding to any of their stewardship of that land?
I don't think that's possible to answer.
Well, we have an agreement we signed.
I think to Joan's point, the wording in there, again, the difference between a recommendation and you are now required to address these items.
There's a difference between a may and a shall and a should.
Yes.
And I would like to look at the easement agreement was entered into in 2016. I'd like to take, I haven't looked at it in a long time. I'd like to take a look at it and compare it to the August 16th, 2021 report in order to determine what our obligations are, what our rights are, and if we, council would want to get out of the agreement, what notice would be required, what costs would be involved.
Other than people going up there riding motorized vehicles, bikes, ATVs, whatever, people wandering up from Mountain Park, whatever. Is this a heavily traveled area? Is this something that
No, because, like I say,
hunting or otherwise?
there's 4 or 5 of us that keep a lot of them out.
Yeah, that's not part of it. I'm talking about just general abuse of the land. That's what I'm.
Now, there's.
So on one hand, you say you can't do anything up there, but on the other hand, yeah, you can go up there, you can do this, this, and this. So somewhere between the two, they're ad-libbing
There's a lot
the
of-
guidelines.
There's a lot of hunting on the
Yeah.
Exeter side
Yeah.
that we're never gonna control because they're not coming in off of, yeah.
See,
Yeah, they come in from Church Lane.
And even that, there's only one section that
Yeah,
they
zero
can come
control.
in, everything else is private property that they're going.
And the Pipers from Downtrick Road.
Well, they're coming in off from their land,
Right.
so.
And I guess that's in Exeter Township where they can use a rifle, which is
No,
ridiculous.
which we do not allow.
No, and we should, because from anywhere up on that mountain with a high-powered rifle could hit our houses. And I don't want that.
Well,
You know,
nothing the Borough of St. Lawrence does or Berks Nature is going to stop that from ever happening. God forbid it ever does. I guess the point here is, that land was it's been up there forever and a day. I'm sure Berks Nature has good intentions. But I don't know if we really need somebody to come in there and say, this is what you must do. With whatever associated costs, I think now defining that line on that paper between should, shall, may, whatever. I think that's something we need to do before we get ourselves all twisted up here.
One parcel of the problem is once you use wetland terminology, you trigger some things that have to be addressed.
Is there an area on the mountain that actually qualifies for a wetland?
No delineator's gone up there.
On a high elevation?
The area where it's wet is where the springs are coming out of the base of the mountain and goes down
Right.
into the
Yeah,
creek.
there are a few
So
places.
that's a wetland created by springs.
I'm gonna be quiet
That's
about it, but when
nature.
it's pouring down rain, everything's wet.
Yeah.
Right, but there is a standard in Pennsylvania code, which is it an intermittent wetland, is it a permanent wetland?
Well, springs would be intermittent because
Was
they,
it mandated in this area when they closed reservoir?
But they also, in the agreement, they use the term wet areas, which includes springs, water courses, non-impounding standing water, and within 100 feet of their edge. And it's almost like a bait and switch to me. We told them we wanted to use this little 1.8 acres for leaf composting, 1.5 acres. And almost all the comments from their annual report is in the area we told them what we were gonna do, which includes we're allowed to do improvements, which means if we want to asphalt up there, we can. But they are managing that as if it were everything else. So I thought we had like a carve out of that up there, but that's not how this report, and that's not how they look at it.
John, good.
so without their involvement, we would have that usage.
Yeah.
Those are, it's borough land, right?
No offense, John, but it's gonna cost us money for you to review this
Right.
and go through it depending on. So that's, the concern is not what it's gonna cost just for you to do this, it's the cumulative effect of. if this
The
is-
agreement says if we want to modify this agreement, they get to review it, they get to back bill us for anything beyond the annual report. That's what the agreement says. So now I'm paying for both sides of any review. And if maybe they are the people we want to be the steward up there, but I don't believe it's this document that we agreed to. So if I'm gonna spend money to modify the agreement, which I think is not in our best interest right now, I would just soon dissolve it and then have another complete different agreement with them on how to manage.
What I need to do is take a look at the agreement, to see what type of notice is required and the costs might be involved.
And I'm sure, I think, did you have a cost at the time that they said they were thinking? Because they sort of lectured us sternly about that, like it was like $10,000 to record all the deeds and stuff like
Well,
that.
to do the whole process of putting the easement on the deed,
Yeah.
there was a cost that they got grant money for.
Well, so they didn't come out of their pocket, but it came out of their budget, so to speak.
It came out of their budget.
Right, they would have spent that money on something else.
They had money that was available for
Right.
this purpose.
Do you know if they manage any other municipal lands anywhere else?
I believe they do. I can find out.
Okay.
Because I know they were talking about, Fleetwood, I think, land, that they were talking about the hunting agreement that was in there. So I can find that out.
Well, they do Never Sick Mountain.
Huh?
All the Never Sick
Yeah,
Mountain.
all of Never Sick Mountain.
Yeah, who owns that though?
Up at the pagoda too.
Yeah.
All the pagoda area.
Well, they own a lot of everything. They own.
Berks Nature owns the land.
Own part of it. Then
Yeah.
the other is in private land, some of it
Yeah.
might be municipal land.
See, I know like Fleetwood, I think they actually have municipal wells, so they have source water protection areas, so, there are other things too, where they would try to keep, nature improvements, to a minimum and stuff like that up there. So, you think it's worth a discussion and perhaps a, revised letter back from them or report back from them?
I think clarification is always important.
Before we go spending money and stuff with agriculture, I mean, legal stuff.
So, what we would probably need back from them in an annual report is clearly spelled out, shoulda, woulda, coulda things versus our understanding of this agreement, these are required. That's how I would like to see it being read? Is that something that makes it very clear?
So you should probably be part of the discussion.
My part of the discussion is to get rid of this. I'm sorry. And I'm almost embarrassed to say I signed that. I wish I'd have paid more attention 3 years ago. Because there's nothing, I don't see the benefit in the borough right now. I think we could have done it in another means, maybe use the same people, but this is really, really bad. And the way they interpret it's completely different than the way I interpret. I thought we had a carve out for the fact we could provide access up there. They're now saying, hey, wait, that's wet up there. You need to have a 100-foot barrier around there because we define what areas are, even though it was in the carve out area. So now we're having a difference of opinion, who stewards what.
Well, there's a drawing that defines the carve out area.
That's right, and they even mentioned here in the minimal protective area, and they told us that's where they needed the wetlands to live. Knowing that we were always going to have access, like what?
And there's no clean water down there. There may be wet soil, but there's no.
So now I have people that don't know what they're talking about when they do this?
As I said, they saw plants that are typical of wetlands growing in that area.
Is any of those three taken to Army Corps training?
I can't answer that question.
Fine, when a builder goes in to build something, what's the number one thing you have to show to get your permits in stormwater? If there's wetlands. There has to be a wetland delineation. You apply for any permit with Pennsylvania DEP to install something, you have to have a wetlands delineation. And you have to have someone sign off on that. So now I'm just showing you how the regulatory side will work, and they're essentially a regulatory for us.
If you carve out an area, you create wetlands, that's man-made, it's not regulated.
Right.
So their interpretation is, yeah, it is wet, and maybe it has become a wetland,
Yeah.
but it's.
But
not
it was
regulated.
carved out for reservoir years ago.
Which we poorly closed, and which is what creates some of the problems with it.
Does anybody else feel like me that it's time to jettison this agreement, or are others more thinking there's another path of some sort of reasonableness in the existing agreement?
Ladder. Yeah, less resistance.
So, as I mentioned, can you go back to them and ask for a revised annual report and the things that are clearly they think need to be done under the agreement versus things that would be kind of shoulda, woulda stuff? You think that they're willing to do that? Okay.
They're very easy to deal with.
They're not easy to deal with if you read this. Yeah. Any other items?
I agree with Steve. I think the path of least resistance and least costly at this point, just to see how much they're willing to play hardball, if they are. I mean, Warren knows them better than most of us, but again, if you go with what's on that paper.
Do you have an agenda item you wanted to bring up about basketball play?
Yeah,
I'm moving on.
basically, like, where are we at? Did we post any signage? Did
There's a
we,
sign right outside of the tennis court at 10 o'clock.
right, it's
That's the old ordinance.
this big,
It's on a big metal sign.
Oh,
it's
You
not.
want that electronic?
I past 2 nights, I was told, once the kids go back to school, this would go away, it's not going away. Past 2 nights, 11 o'clock, boom, boom, boom.
can you call the police on it, or you don't want to do that?
I'm past doing that. I walked over, the first kid, I said, excuse me, I stood up on Jackson Bowl, looking down. I said, excuse me, he was listening to some loud stuff on his phone. He looks up at me, yeah. And I said,
Park's closed.
well, I said, you know, you realize you're breaking the noise ordinance. And he, what? So I said, basically, you're breaking the law. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. I said it politely. And he didn't give me a hard time. He walked out, got in his car, and left. Was it last night? No, Tuesday night, happened again. Different kid, little taller, little
Bulkier.
bigger, so I walked out. I wasn't trying to be intimidating. I walked on the basketball court from my property. I said the same thing, basically. I said, you know, you're not supposed to be here. There's a noise ordinance. And he just looked at me and got a little attitude. And he said, I said, there's no lights. It's past 11 o'clock. He's like, who am I bothering? And I got a little upset. I said, you're bothering me. I pointed out, I said, right there, I'm on Borough Council. And then he's walking away, muttering stuff. He gets in his car, drives by my house, beep, beep, you know, he saw where I went back to. Now, my wife's concerned.
Yeah.
He's like, why did you do this? I'm like, I'm past the police. I'm past.
But that's the whole problem, you know, I've encountered others before, depending on their size of that, I just call the police. Because I don't, you know, they'll respond to a person in a uniform, and I don't have any
The
enforcement.
answers I got from the police is, well, they're not there doing other places causing other problems. They're not out doing drugs here, drugs there.
Yeah, I would expect that kind of response from them.
They go on for like 10-hour, whatever their shift is. They don't live in the same house.
Could you put a lock on the gate?
I suppose we could. You know,
Times before, they just scaled the fence.
They scale the
That'll
fence.
scale the fence.
At least that way when the police show up, they're inside the fence there.
Then it's like, who's gonna go there to lock the gate at 10 o'clock?
Or they'll fall, hurt themselves and sue the borough. That's how-
Don't on the fence.
Some kid bought a big ladder one time.
Take the basketball.
So, will you contact the chief tomorrow, please, and tell him if need be, I need to be on that call, or he can come in and we'll have a meeting. But we don't think some of the responses by patrol
I
have
get
been
it.
added.
I get it. I'm one person in the borough.
No,
but I'm
no,
still one person in the borough.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
but no,
I'm past fed up with it. You know,
I
I'm not gonna go out and hurt anyone. Trust me.
No, but once again, like I said, I've gone out and encountered before Dayton sometimes, is a lot more, edgier than I know. But other times, I just call the cops. And I even tell them, if you want to, you know, who I am and where I'm at, here's my number, and after you investigate, give me a call back. You know, I'll talk to
Well,
you.
there was one.
I'll
day
identify
they went over,
Berks.
15 minutes, a different group of people came back and played. I mean, this was,
Yeah.
it was, sometimes this goes 12:30, 1:30 in the morning. You know, I'm just tired. Sorry.
Let the, you know, my suggestion to the chief, if I get to talk to him, is that car, you know, can park there for a while. You know, we pay extra for our stuff, and that's what it needs to be to break the habit. We can do that.
Just,
You know,
swing, I mean, hopefully it's gonna go away in the next few months as the weather turns, but.
What did the sign say?
They played basketball.
Reggie's
I see them shovel.
I was a kid like growing up.
What
I
did
was
the
walking
sign
over
say?
the road. I played basketball almost every night, but that was different there. The police would come down, it's always been on the police station. Okay, guys, time to go. All right, thanks. And they lock it up and open it in the morning. Now, it's more convenient, the thing is behind the borough.
Yeah.
This is a little less convenient, if we get that, you can do a lot. Okay, they're gonna take 5 minutes, get out of the car, lock it out. Next guy, the next shit comes out in the morning, it's both ends up.
we'll, put more effort against it, so there won't be. How's that?
Excellent.
Any other things, or is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
You made a motion, Mike.
Steve, I made it. Motion to move, the nays are, been seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thanks for all your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Just remember that if anybody wants an item added to the agenda, to let us know at least 48 hours.